we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to Gov Brief. This is a special interagency briefing for PRISM and FMS system integration. And what we have here today with us is Mr. John Doty in the house. He's the president of DTC Global. Say hey, John.
Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Dave Lowe. I'm the Gov Brief host, and I'm kind of doing double duty because I'm now working with DTC Global as well, so it's pretty cool. We want to welcome everybody. We're going to be highlighting some things from USDA today, but we also want to welcome VA, Department of State, GSA. We've got folks from the Navy, from the Army, from National Archives, HHS, U.S. Mint, Army Corps of Engineers, people coming in from all over the place. I had no idea that this topic was going to be such a great topic for everybody across the United States, but we do know why this is, and we'll get to that in just a minute. Just real quick, we'll do some overview of the briefing controls. We'll talk about issues, initiatives, regulations, all that's happening. We'll give you some highlights of the USDA PRISM interface that DTC is involved with, some key issues facing agencies, obviously other agencies, not just USDA, right, John?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
And we'll get to some questions and answers. You can ask questions throughout this, recommended action steps, as well as procurement options and additional resources for you. As far as briefing controls, if you like the way that John and I are dressed today, you can make us larger by dragging this. It could be above or it could be on the sides, but you can drag it and make us larger. Or if you want death by PowerPoint, you can make us disappear altogether. And you can also open that panel to the right-hand side. Most likely it's on the right. And there's handouts that are associated with this particular briefing. And you can also raise your hand because we love to have the dialogue. Right, John?
Yes, indeed.
That's the idea, is we want to create the dialogue, and any questions, any suggestions you have, you want to chat a question, you could do that. If you want to talk with us, you can also do that. And if you dialed in on the phone, and there's a few people that have, make sure you enter your audio pin, and it's the pound audio pin pound, and then we can unmute you and we can dialogue with you for the rest of the conversation. You can also, if you have something specific, you can send your questions to govsupport@dtcglobal.com, and that will also be available throughout the presentation on the lower right-hand side of your screen. As I mentioned, in our session handouts, we have OMB memoranda that we're kind of touching as a result of this. There's a lot of things out there, right, John, that are issues and initiatives that are coming down on folks' heads. Right. And you have the briefing presentation notes that you can take with that, as well as DTC global capabilities. There will be follow-up documents via email that will come out later, included in the Q&A. And with that, we're going to get into the disclaimer that this is not endorsed by the USDA or any other agencies to provide it to you, the audience, for informational purposes only, and all participation in this and dialogue, for that matter, is voluntary, and engagement by you, the government personnel, is not an indication, endorsement of, or commitment to purchase from any vendor. Now we got that out of the way. We can talk about a few things. Tell us about DTC Global. Now, you're up here in Maryland, as you mentioned, just outside D.C., but you have offices in D.C. Tell us how you got started and a little bit of history about DTC Global.
There's well, I'm old enough that there's so much history. We're just going to do the short version. We are based in Tampa, Florida. We have offices up here in D.C. to support our federal work, which majority of the federal work is actually in this area. So we do spend a great deal of time up in D.C. I will tell you that the DTC Global, it was founded in 2005 after some independent work and some consulting work for IBM, and that's how I engaged on the USDA contract. IBM brought me in as a technical expert to help them set up and configure the hardware and software supporting the integrated acquisition system for the USDA. This is comprised of two major COTS products, the Oracle e-Business Suite and CompResearch's PRISM contracts management system. We are heavily into the Oracle-based COTS solutions, the Oracle EBS, SAP, used to be on Oracle, now much more on HANA, PRISM as a major player on the Oracle platform, and other supporting products that are running on top of the Oracle database. I've been fortunate enough to work with Oracle since the mid-'80s, when Oracle was Larry Ellison and a couple other people. I've worked with their teams out in Redwood Shores to help set up, back in those days, on IBM mainframes and eventually to mid-range servers, and now finally to desktop and web-enabled applications. We are a Schedule 70 holder. We are shooting for 8A certification. Hope the SBA gets that approved to us quickly. And been supporting the integrated acquisition system at the USDA now since 2002. And actually, somewhere in here, there's a certificate that proclaims my work at the USDA for sitting out there in that data center for 2 weeks straight to get that system stood up back in May of 2002. Been there ever since. Started the company based on that success. Here today to talk about how we can help enable successes across procurement platforms for agencies, including other agencies within the Department of Agriculture.
And that's one of the things that I find interesting is that we have folks in procurement that are actually using your tools right now, and they might not even know it.
Well, could be.
That could very well could be. And if it's connected to PRISM and the USDA, most likely, right? So, and then you have other services that you can provide. But today, we're talking about some of the successes that you've had with USDA. And in addition to that, we want to figure out what's happening with the folks that are here today. So why are you here? Are you here because you're in contracting and PRISM is part of your daily work? And is your agency have an issue with PRISM and you're looking for help? Are you exploring using PRISM? There's still folks coming on board that have interfaces that need to be done with PRISM. Or you use a different system of record, or do you just want to you understand how DC Global can help you integrate your financial management to your financial management system? So let us know where you are. And it looks like 100% so far. That's it. Everybody has voted, and guess what? Look at this. This is pretty amazing. They are using PRISM as their system of record. So they get to be able to talk with us about what they see every day. And we do appreciate you guys being here, as a matter of fact. So we appreciate you joining us, especially since you're actually using it. So some of the things that we want to talk about actually are being driven by initiatives either from OMB or even just through the FAR, right? Through the acquisition mechanisms. You're talking about electronic invoices. That's certainly something that's going paperless, right? It's a big part. In fact, you're heading that up with USDA, right, John?
We are. We're looking at options within the PRISM platform that can help agencies go full paperless contracting. Right.
So getting paperless, government efficiency is obviously a big thing. We know everybody here has just oodles of time because of the amount of workload that you all, especially in contracting, if you're entering in PRISM, you're in contracting. We know that you're up against it, especially this time of year. So government efficiency is a huge issue right now, facing everybody. And then M1728 is reinforcing those efficiency mandates for M1722, all revolving around FAR subpart 4.5. Electronic commerce and contracting, and that's kind of what's on everybody's mind. And the objective being paperless is a big deal, and integrated acquisition systems, right? That's what we're talking about, right, John?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. So tell us about the PRISM contracting writing system. It is pretty pervasive throughout the federal government, isn't it?
It is. It is the leading market share contract writing system available in the federal space. It's been around for quite a while. There are most agencies. I obviously can't say all agencies, but most of the agencies are running PRISM, whether they know it or not. But it is the contract writing system for the Department of Agriculture's primary acquisition system. There are several other lesser, I hate to say lesser, but there are several other acquisition systems that are specific to some of the agencies. Those folks are even talking to us about integrating their processes into our integrated acquisition system platform at the Department of Agriculture.
Excellent. And there's a lot of users, 50,000 plus federal users. A lot of the reasons revolve around the fact that they do understand the federal space. They understand what contracting's up against, and it meets the congressional mandates for going paperless. So to your point, John, this is exactly what agencies are moving towards, and you can't say that it's bulletproof, but it's certainly proven, right?
Well, anybody that's using it will tell you it's not bulletproof, and that's where we provide a great deal of support to the Department of Agriculture in resolving some of those pain points. But it is, the predominant player, and to write an application that's going to suit every person, every CO, is quite a challenge. And that's where we lend some expertise in how we merge those two wants and desires into an application that's cost provided.
That's right. And if you take a look at what's happening with USDA, they're pretty substantial, right? 5,000 plus users just in the USDA alone, right?
Yes, sir.
It's across the United States. Tell us about how the system, what you do in this world, because you're talking about millions of records and 10 plus years of acquisition data. That's a lot of data.
It is. And so let me clarify just a little bit. PRISM is the contracts management component of our acquisition systems. Oracle E-Business Suite is the financial requisitioner aspect, and we merged those two, building an interface between those two. We bundle all that and all those transactions. We then interface over to the financial system of record, FMS, where we in real time message and get commitments out of the financial systems back to the USDA's contract requisitioner people. So we're responsible for managing all of those COTS products, all of those interfaces, which we designed and built for the USDA specifically to meet their real-time contracting and requisition requirements. We are one of the largest civilian deployments of PRISM across the federal space as well. We have some very unique solutions in place to help solve the user count, which is much higher than the typical agency might experience. There are 1,100 COs, contractors, and 4,000 plus requisitioners on our platforms. And we support that. We support the interfacing. We support the COTS products application. Even for the PRISM solution, we're responsible for managing that patching, the configuration, the upgrading process is all associated, and debugging and finding solutions. We work very closely with CompuSearch's folks to resolve and remediate any issues within the code itself. So
when this all started, you go way back, tell us about the initial problem and some of the other problems that you encountered along the way. But overall, the system has to talk, both of these systems have to talk to each other, right?
Right. And so there was a phased approach at the Department of Agriculture. First, we stood up the acquisition system, and then we needed to build a real-time interface over to the financial system of record so that commitments were real-time, the obligations were real-time, all the management processes and financial aspects were real-time, as opposed to requisitioners waiting an extended period of time to get awards through or processed. This became a mandate for us to build that, which we did. We've actually had to build it twice now. When the National Finance Center decided to change their financial system of record, we rewrote our interfaces to match that new system of record, and that's been in place now since 2009. But the bottom line was to get real-time acquisition response so that the buyers and the agencies knew real-time what their available funding was, how they could manage their contracts in real time and buy in real time. And this becomes critical at the end of the fiscal year when deobligating money so that you can spend it for things that are important to your mission, as opposed to waiting days and weeks to get that money back and become available for you to fund, and then sometimes it was too late.
Sure. So with this, the USDA, they got the licenses for CompuSearch, PRISM, as well as Oracle EBS, right? So they made the decision to move in this direction. How did that come about?
The major integrator at the time was IBM, and those are the guys that called me in to come help them out with laying out the platform. So there was a case and study that was built on a business plan that was approved to revamp the separate acquisition systems within the Department of Agriculture to centralize those systems, and then that was the birth of the integrated acquisition system. And at the time, CompuSearch's PRISM solution didn't include the financial aspects of the acquisition process that it does now. We developed a hybrid solution. We needed to go to a financial package, the Oracle E-Business Suite, tie that to the contract writing package, and then bundle, like I said, all that together, then to talk over to the financial system of record.
So you have experience, well, PRISM being one, Oracle two, IBM, and then dealing with connectivity with the larger systems like SAP, right? So which
Yes.
what we also find throughout the federal government as well.
Yes, yes. In fact, the financial system of record is an SAP-based platform managed by the National Finance Center. We help those folks with that interface and aspect of processing, so that messaging that we send over to them, they're able to process that through their interfaces and then into their systems, commit, get responses, build messaging back to us. So we're supporting and again, SAP used to be Oracle based, and so that was in our wheelhouse. Now the move away from Oracle is happening, and the Finance Center has moved FMS off of Oracle onto the HANA platform, but we're still heavily engaged in supporting that product.
Sure. And that does, just because it's not on Oracle doesn't mean that it falls outside of your expertise either, right?
No. The SAP platform itself, which is a predominantly what's financial, it also is a very good supply chain. We've had a lot of background supporting clients like AT&T, their procurement logistics aspect of SAP systems. So the database repository is just that. The workflows and the mechanisms and the processes that SAP uses to integrate external data is not really dependent on the Oracle platform.
That's right. So some of the challenges that have happened in a result of this, because these systems don't generally just desire to talk to each other automatically, right?
They don't. So we had a challenge initially to understand the data elements of both systems. In fact, so to make that even a little more complicated, we have PRISM and Oracle EBS data, which those two systems have different data precision, data formats, character text fields, even as simple as things as address lines 1 and 2 being 30 or 40 characters presents challenges to how we format consistent messages, then build a reporting system to capture error and then error processing, and then to supplement the real-time data flow with secondary systems that bulk load vendors from the system of record into our systems, accounting codes, all that is handled out of the system of record. We just capture that and bring it in and format it and then interface it into our acquisition system.
And some of the things, we'll talk about some of your successes with that in just a minute, but these are some of the traditional issues between the messaging system and the format you mentioned just now, format, the other, just keeping up with the changes, because none of these systems are just staying static, right? They're implementing updates and changes which can break things that are in the middle.
And often do. We have 3 different vendor solutions involved in this, and each one of those has their own upgrade path or security updates or just flat out new functionality updates that need to be implemented. And each one of those products, they don't care what the other product is doing at that time. It's our job to integrate, make sure those updates are happening smoothly, and that we test and we ensure that the messaging formats and there's no substantial data changes. Even the changes to the data dictionaries from Oracle database version 11 to version 12c impacted us, and we have to be aware of that. So we're watching 3 COTS vendors send updates. We're making sure that we're staying on top of that. We work closely with each of the COTS vendors. FMS this weekend ran a DR drill. We help support that as part of our interface to them. We need to make sure their disaster recovery processes are in sync with our disaster recovery processes. So there are a lot of facets, and then primarily we got to make sure that the messaging stays consistent and we don't lose any messaging. And while there are options available in the market space. We settled on IBM's WebSphere MQ series message queuing system. For the years that we've been in business, we've never lost a single transaction, including the Hurricane Katrina disaster that hit New Orleans.
Wow.
Zero data loss. We've never lost a transaction. We have the ability to replay transactions or back out transactions as we need to, but we've never lost a single one.
That is impressive. I'm
It's
certain that there are other people here that are not, they're not experiencing that.
Call us, we'll help them with that.
That's right. So some of the other challenges, you mentioned some of these already, the data formats just not matching up, rounding errors, that can create some significant problems, right? And
yeah. So data precision is key, right? So if the SAP system has dollar values or quantity amounts out to 5 decimal points, PRISM has it out to 2. It's fine when you initially commit, 10 items at $1 a piece and $10. You start taking out line items and you start reducing that funding amount, and then you start worrying about fractions of cents. And it's easy, and we run reports on this to ensure the buyers that we've got, a couple of cents out there that they either need to de-obligate or spend. But it's a process, and I'm oversimplifying it, obviously, but it's a process to manage those fractions of cents just because those systems or data precisions are different, and we pay attention to that stuff.
Yep. And that's some of the things, and so the impact on the users, obviously, if you're a user, if you're experiencing some of these things, this is one of the key areas where it creates a problem for contracting. Anything that's not right down to the penny can create a problem for folks. And to your point, rounding, inconsistencies in rounding and reporting and obligated versus de-obligated funding amounts, those can be problematic just from a paperwork standpoint of having to fix these things, an approval process to get these changes done, and then you have glitches. But this is the impact on the folks that are actually using the systems, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
And we know obviously that there's always issues, and you also help with the support of this on the back end, right? So you're running the system, but you're also dealing with the help desk for USDA. Tell us about that.
Sure. The help desk is responsible for supporting the users of the acquisition system, everything from the new buyer that's having issues, understanding of the process, or that there's a discrepancy between what is in the FMS system record and what's getting post-edited out to FPDSNG, which is part of what our system does as well for reporting. We help them work through that, and then if there's an issue that's identified that requires a solution from the COTS vendors, we will work with the COTS vendors. And a lot of times, I have a great engineering team. These guys, if there's those guys are the ones that make this happen, right? But these guys, they work so closely, and they've had decades of experience working with these product sets that they're tuned to what's going on. In fact, the team of engineers at USDA they have longer period of service than the folks at the COTS solution help desk. So a lot of time, engineering solutions are found by the internal teams at USDA. We work with the COTS providers to write up a patch and send it back to us. But our help desk is the first glance at those issues. We've become aware of issues and work through those. A lot of times it's just a process of getting the user acclimated to the new system. But there are sometimes some real issues. Ship to address is not consistent. Maybe the vendor code's not in the system of record yet. We need to get that from them. So there are ways that we support that. And then again, real-time bugs and glitches in the system, we're responsible for resolving those.
And we've been talking with different contracting folks throughout the past couple of months to gain insight on what they're seeing. And we encourage everybody that's using the system to report back to us to say what their issues are so that we can take that upstream and say, guess what? This is really not a complicated fix in order to get an efficiency factor and help with the efficiency factors, since that's what we're all up against anyway, right? We have the efficiency factors. So what's your issue with PRISM? that you're using, since everybody here is using it, I already said so. So is it speed? Is it interaction with the FMS, reporting inconsistencies, messaging issues, or something else? We can talk about that offline. But let us know what it is that you guys are up against as far as inconsistencies. And you can do it. You all can vote. It's okay. Let's take a look at what this looks like. So half the people have problems with the speed, half the people have problems with FMS. Obviously, you can vote for more than one, right? So there you go. It's 50%. But there's definitely some situations here that that we can help with and help you get to the place where you want to get to, right?
Yes,
all right, so we'll open this up for questions. And the first question is, will the presentation be made available? Yes, it is. In fact, it's already available, and you can open up the handouts down the bottom, and you can download. You can just take it right out of there. We will also have a follow-up email that goes out so that you'll have that. Any other specific questions about using PRISM? There was a bunch of folks here asking questions about that. Let me see if I can get to my questions pane and get this better here. Let's see. 1 second. My attendees here. So we'll be glad to answer any of those. And obviously, there's a couple of that we'll talk about specifics. What are some of the costs associated with building the platform between those? What are they looking at if you're building an interface between PRISM and another system?
Honestly, it's going to depend on what the other system is. We've had some efficiencies over the years that we've gained just because we've been working so closely with the larger COTS providers. But in essence, we're writing a Java-based solution that's going to format messages, send them through some type of messaging processor. Like I said, we use IBM's product, and then we need time and support from the financial system of record to make that happen. So, honestly, the biggest probably cost factor is the time associated with defining the requirements, getting the data defined to the point that we can start passing and formatting messaging. The Java build is not that great a piece of the pie. It's more about the time and expertise of getting those two agencies, which isn't always the easiest thing to do, to talk to each other in the same time and then coordinate that build and implementation process. And if I may, on the list of things that came up, speed being at the top of your list, and we find that as one of the larger deployments of the PRISM solution, there are a lot of opportunities to build upon the database indexing and speed opportunities within that. So to optimize those queries, we work constantly with CompuSearch to manage through efficiencies within the database itself. The code itself is making calls to the database, and so the database has to be able to respond quickly. We look for efficiencies there. That's one of the biggest areas we can target. Can't really help much with the USDA bandwidth. Those issues that are associated with that, we're aware of them. We always try to keep our messaging small so that speed isn't impacted. But database is an opportunity to really improve upon the product itself.
So here's a question. What was the decision behind using WebSphere?
The biggest factor was WebSphere is its consistency and redundancy that's built into that product set. It manages the queue process. It manages and accounts for every transaction in and out. So we relied heavily on that. That's why we can say we are as successful as we are. From the engineering aspect, we built upon their redundancies in their system to ensure that messaging goes and then it comes back. And we have tools within that system that will tell us when messaging is gone and hasn't come back in a minute or 2 or 5 or 10. We run those constantly. But MQ, as opposed to a standard web service, which we could have used, just has all kinds of redundancy, consistency, messaging consistency, and that's just critical in financial systems of record. That message has to be accurate and it has to be received.
Excellent. What implications of this or revolve around this for being in the cloud? Is this a cloud-based situation, or?
There is there is a definition of cloud that becomes difficult sometimes to manage too. The National Finance Center, where we are hosted, will tell you that we're in the cloud. Now, as an engineer, I got to know where that server is, right? We've got to know where that thing is. I don't know where it is on the floor, but I know what its name is and I know what its address is.
Right.
From a cloud perspective, our users in agriculture, they don't know where that is. They don't really need to know, and to them, it's in the cloud.
Yeah.
Now, the government is pushing more into the private cloud, and so FEMI is actually moved, and we've supported their move into a private cloud, FedRAMP compliant cloud. So it is becoming more and more the government's getting out of the hosting business, and we're taking advantage of some of these truer cloud. But in the truest sense, without getting too far in the weeds, the biggest definition of cloud is the ability to allocate your own server and resources. The government's not going to let us do that. They're not going to let me go build my own server. They're going to have to do that for me.
Right.
That's the piece that's missing from our cloud solution. But truly, from the user's perspective, we are in the cloud.
Excellent. And if you have any additional questions, you can shoot them over to support@govbrief.us or govsupport@dtcglobal.com, and we'll be glad to make sure we get that. But just making sure we stay on point and on time, since that's what we are talking about. One of the things that you were talking about, I think this is really impressive, is the zero transaction loss that you have. That's kind of the initiatives that USDA laid out for you. Hey, we don't want to lose a thing.
Right.
Got to move to paperless, obviously, and that's one of the things that you're really concentrating on. Also, the using commercial off-the-shelf systems, right? So you don't have to do an incredible amount of customization every time you do a launch. Somebody else is responsible for handling the upgrades and the updates, and that's an initiative that's throughout the federal government and moving towards that direction to offload that kind of support. And like you said, highly reliable messaging and zero transaction loss. And how many years is that, John Doty?
Since 2002.
It's 2002. That's a lot of transactions.
It is.
A lot of transactions.
We're very grateful we use the IBM products that, not that because we've had situations where we had a tornado data center. We've had situations where it's the Hurricane Katrina, where it's proven itself to be incredibly reliable, and the government has, while looked at other solutions, has settled on the IBM product.
Yeah. And that is an impressive story. That Katrina story is very impressive. All right, so when do you expect a PRISM requirement? And that can be right now, because we're in the end of fiscal year 2018. Crazy time of year, I know, for everybody. So we really appreciate you joining us for this today. And or is it Q1 2019, Q2, or not sure, or you have something else, which is fine. If you have something else that you need information on, you can certainly, we'll certainly make sure we get information to you. And we're coming up against the time, so we want to make sure we get this done. So we'll give you another, you guys can do it. I see you coming in, that's good. And we'll make sure we get the information that you need for your project and help you where you need to. And with that, another 5 seconds, guys. You can do it. It's okay. And this is what we got. We got a bunch of 50%ers here. Look at this. You got Q1 2019 and not sure, which is fine. By the way, there is no wrong answer here. You can't create things that come up, right? So we appreciate you joining us for that and letting us know. So with that, we have some procurement options for DTC Global specifically. You said this before. You can buy direct through GSA Schedule 70. You have all of your information there. And you mentioned that also, that you're going for your 8A. What's that look like for you?
We're hopeful that happens in the next month.
Oh, that'd be great. That'll be super great. And we will keep everybody apprised of that as well. And then through partners, if you need to run it through Service Disabled, VA folks, obviously, you vet first, you don't have a choice, right? IBM, running it through them. If you need woman-owned or Soup 5, we have partners that we can run that through. Hopefully, we have the 8A taken care of, so that becomes an issue that we can help you with as well. That'd be very good. So, again, we really appreciate you joining us. If you have any additional questions, you can reach out direct to John Doty at john.doty@dtcglobal.com. And there's his office in his cell. He is literally, he was on the phone 2 minutes before this with the customer. And I was like, hey, John. Hey, John.
No worries.
And so, but he made it. Everything was great. Customers always come first, right, John?
Indeed, they do. Always.
Indeed they do. Always come first. And if you need to reach out to us or me, govsupport@dtcglobal.com, my office number, my cell number. So there's no reason why you can't reach out to us, and we'll make sure we follow up with you. Thank you for joining us today. If you need anything else, feel free to reach out to us. Any parting comments? John Doty in just outside of Bowie and Gambrels, Maryland.
For today. Thank you to all that took time today to attend. And if I can be of any assistance at all, please don't hesitate to call. Thank you, sir.
Thanks much. We will see you at the next Gov Brief.